Friday NBA slate. I did not have a good night last night. Me and Sheets seem to swap. I don't know. We can't seem to have a good night on the same night. So Sheets had a nice night. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to get into this slate.
Yeah, well, I couldn't. Remember, for those of you that were on the live stream, okay, I said, you know what? I don't want to play Gary Trent, and I didn't. That was great. Okay. And then I said there was another guy I didn't want to play. I didn't play him, and that was great. But I couldn't get them all. So
Jackson,
I did play Greg Jackson.
Yeah, it was hard to fade them all, right?
Hard to fade them all because I played Bagley too. So but so I had the same lineup that Kate came in. I entered it. He got 20th in the alley-oop and 4th in the splash. And they cashed the same amount, by the way, which is interesting. But I wanted to share that with you. It really had just one like total hoodoo, and it wouldn't be who you would think. So let's pull it up.
All right, let's see it.
It is ready. It is
even with Greg Jackson and Gary
the 0.3% owned Mike Conley.
Hey, look at that.
There you have it.
A cash game 3%, 0.3%er.
0.3% we got.
Love it.
Yeah, and Keegan Murray got there. He was 18%. That wasn't bad. And Markkanen got, and both those guys, by the way, it took them a while to get there. Markkanen and Murray, but they did. Brunson went ballistic. But he was high owned, and I had Bagley, and nothing else particularly like interesting about it. But again, listen, but Greg Jackson, he was like in all the winning lineups. I think it's like
no, I know because you could it
was either him, or Trent. You know what I mean? Like one of those guys were in the winning lineups. You just couldn't. That's what happens. You have to play these guys to access the other guys. That's just
right.
reality.
But that's a nice lineup. The part I missed on was the Brunson myself. I didn't do that. I got a lot of other good pieces right. I had a lot of I mentioned it. I talked a lot about how he'd be lower owned, and Scotty Barnes at 58, which was awesome. So that was my big play. Scotty Barnes and DeRozan were both awesome. They were both at no ownership, or DeRozan was 4% owned. So even the problem is I had to get the Jackson and Trent, and I had to fade all that.
I know it's tough to fade them.
It's tough, and you're still putting up 300 pluses, and you still can't cash in a couple of them.
Yeah.
So a little bit frustrating, but on to the night. Actually feeling a little bit better. I feel like I'm a little more dialed in with NBA lately. I know that we're going to miss on the Greg Jacksons, we're going to miss on the Gary Trents and things like that every now and then, or but it overall, I'm starting to feel like a sense like you come back from even a week trip. And then there's trades happening and you're trying to keep up. Now I feel pretty caught up on everything. So I actually feel pretty good about tonight's slate.
Okay. So I'm seeing Trae Young is out on DraftKings. Is that true?
Let's see. I'm getting alerts right now. Let's see what's happening. Why are these alerts?
And I saw his list as questionable before, and of course I did my numbers based on him being in. So we know.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's happening here. Let me get a look here. Trae Young has been ruled out.
Yes.
They're saying an illness. Don't be surprised if he's traded.
Oh, okay.
So I guess that makes it real easy for us, right?
Well, yeah. First of all, it means I'm going to have to redo everything. But yeah, I imagine DeJounte Murray is a good play, and that Bogdan Bogdanovic is a good play for openers.
Yeah, the only thing, and I'm going to be all over it. We'll get all over that one in a little bit. It's a bad matchup, obviously, for it, but it's going to be really, really hard to keep at least 2, if not 3, Atlanta guys out of there. So we'll start with the early game, though. San Antonio at Charlotte, 2 of the worst teams in the recent NBA history. And I will say, though, that I think San Antonio is looking more and more competent, and Charlotte's looking more competent with LaMelo back. So I guess we have that. What do you like in this game?
So I'm just going to say what I have here. And this before Miami news, before the Atlanta news, I have out of the top 10 values on my board, I have 8 of them from this game. So with the absence of if there was no Atlanta game, I'd probably have like 8 guys from this game, and 7 o'clock, then I can go out to dinner. And not worry about that. Right? And those would be Sohan, Trey Jones, Devin Vassell from San Antonio, and Zach Collins, by the way, and then also LaMelo, Rozier, Bridges, and Nick Richards from Charlotte. So that would be currently what I would have. Again, Atlanta stuff is going to change that, but it's not going to change the fact that all those guys are still going to be good plays.
I agree. Yeah. So it's, again, I'm curious what the starting lineup's going to be, as I keep pointing out that it is really, really important. That the Celtics the other day were the perfect example of it. And it's sort of screwed you over. So I would like to see who they end up starting officially, but I think that it'll probably just be Collins filling in for Wemby, which is a little confusing because if Collins wasn't coming off of an injury time, he would be projected at about 36 or 37 because that's what he was the last time Wembanyama was out. Actually, I think he was a little higher. I think he was around 40. So Collins would have looked like the best play on the slate. I think you're playing two of ththese guys, even with the Atlanta news in a good portion of lineups. The thing that's a little weird is the Champagny, who I played the other night at 0.3% ownership, and on that big slate on Wednesday, and that was actually a good lineup that I had. But it's weird to all of a sudden see him being so popular when I'm not sure his role necessarily is going to change. I think it's going to be Collins takes the Wemby minutes. You could argue that maybe Champagny gets more looks, but Vassell and Johnson are both still there, as are Sohan and Jones. So I have them as a big group for right now. I'm just going to say two of them, with my favorite currently being Zach Collins and probably Zach Collins and Vassell. Actually, I'll go a little different than what the projections like. I do like Sohan and Keldon Johnson, but for me, it's more going to be Zach Collins and Vassell at the moment, if I get a feeling for how many minutes Collins plays. Did you say anything on the Charlotte side?
Yeah, a whole bunch.
I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Yeah, LaMelo. I have LaMelo rated like the second best point per dollar play on the slate, followed by Rozier, followed by Bridges. I have them second, third, and fourth overall, and Nick Richards in seventh. So that's why I was saying, like, the whole game dominates my board before the Atlanta news came out.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's also a great matchup on top of everything else. Nick Richards too.
Said that.
PJ Washington.
Yeah.
Richards or Washington. Okay. So I guess in terms of like priority, I would go Melo one of Bridges or Rozier, and then I would just put Richardson and Washington at the moment. Richards and Washington for the moment as in between. I'm also open to Brandon Miller and Cody Martin, but we don't know about Brandon Miller being healthy, and Nick Richards and Bryce McGowan, who's currently out, still may play. We're unlikely, but just gonna have to revisit that one a little bit later. But definitely seems like a game you could definitely stack by accident.
Would you make any rule to keep LaMelo and Rozier out of the same lineup?
No.
Okay.
Not in this matchup, but sometimes I would. It's a good question. Philly and Orlando. What do you got?
So I have one play. Well, I have two plays from this game. One is Embiid, just because he's always in play to score 80, right? And the other one is from the other side, Wendell Carter Jr. at 4,500. He was like a couple of weeks ago when he came back from injury. He was I was considering playing him, going back and forth, but they never really gave him the minutes. So I'm curious to see why he's all of a sudden showing up. Okay, so they gave him 24 in his last game, but that's really what you're going to get. But maybe 24 minutes is not bad. Obviously, it's not the greatest matchup in the world, to say the least. But I don't know. He's showing up as a play for me right now.
Yeah, sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go for it because they need size against Embiid. Batate could get in foul trouble quickly. The fact that they're not even starting him is a little disheartening.
It's rough.
Yeah. But look, if we see he's in the starting lineup, he'll also become like one of the most popular plays on the slate. And you'd think at some point he would get his starting job back, but I guess they're just sticking with Batate for now. Not really sure what to do with it. I actually feel like there should be more to do in this game. I think you could consider Okeke, sort of in the same vein, I guess, as Carter. Carter's obviously got much more upside, but I think that Markelle Fultz, you could make it. Actually, Markelle Fultz is probably the most similar to Carter of any of these guys. they're all just sort of like blending together. And then even Cole Anthony, I just have as like a maybe kind of take a shot on. But same thing with the super popular. I don't think we're going to need it at all. But like the was going to be super popular, then totally unknown Jonathan Isaac. I just don't think I need to do that. But we'll see at the end of the day. If I need a 3,400, I might take a gamble, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm fine with Embiid. I just say that there's nothing about this. Like if you play Embiid tonight, it's really just for ownership, or that you should be playing him every night. Now I do play Embiid pretty much every night.
Yeah, I mean, he gets 70 every night. What are you going to do? I mean, like,
yeah, and probably one of the worst, situations matchup wise. But like 11.5 is still too cheap until these guys are 12K. It's just really weighing him versus the other guys you want to spend for, and I think that he would rank number one as of right now for me. So
one issue trying to fade him though. I mean, this is a game that they're not a 100-point favorite in. You know what I mean? Like, well, you might actually get like 35 minutes out of him.
Yeah, but I mean, even the other night, like they still, I don't know, like it's not a great matchup. 60 is probably not enough unless we find the right value. We have value, but like we also have like this mid range of like LaMelo at 88. Yeah. Both Bridges and Rozier in the low 7Ks. The entire Spurs team in the mid range. Like I'm not sure that we necessarily need to do it. Right. That would be my only thing, but it's certainly doable. I do have him on my list, but he's definitely not a priority for me today as of right now.
And I'm not saying this just because I took a shot and lost on him in this last game, but when I played LaMelo a couple of days ago, I was even thinking that maybe he's not going to really go off till he gets it home in like a better matchup or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't get better than this for LaMelo, if you want to know the truth. I mean, This is like the Harlem Globetrotters game without even Wemby on the court to block shots, So it's like LaMelo can outscore Embiid in like some variation. You know
Absolutely. What I mean? I think that's possible. And even he can, even if he just is within 10, you're just saving so much, and you can keep that mid-range, that mid-low tier build. All right, what do you have for Denver and Boston?
Probably nothing. But let me just take a look. I'm just guessing. Yeah, I'm not really getting anything over there.
Yeah.
I mean, if all those guys remain out for Boston, maybe everybody's going to play in this game, right? I mean.
Oh, I forgot to say is that the guy who's going to look bad from a projection standpoint, but is an interesting tournament play. I forgot to say Paolo Banchero will be like 0% owned. And it's a spot where if it was the day after Franz was out, I think you'd see him with some ownership. So I just want to throw out the Paolo thing from the game before. So you got nothing with Denver, Boston.
No, this game is like a preview of something probably, and or could potential preview of something, and everybody's healthy. It'll be a great basketball game that I'm probably going to fade.
Yeah, I sort of second that emotion. I can't really get to a whole lot. I mean, I guess like you could do the Reggie Jackson thing again. Sure.
I mean, I don't think this is the game. You know what I mean? Like.
Well, no, I think you think about that stuff more. He plays the same minutes. Like their rotations are their rotations. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's a big enough game. Maybe I'm dismissive of that. Maybe it's a big enough thing where they actually do. Yeah, I have to think about that one. Anyway, to the Boston side, everybody looks pretty good, but nobody looks great. And I think that if there's one thing that stood out to me, it's Derek White at 6,100. I would say that would be my favorite play. And I think that there's upside for Porzingis in this type of matchup. It's also a really interesting contrasting of styles, like because Jokic guarding Porzingis on the perimeter. It's just an interesting way that it's going to work. So Boston likes to play like 5 out a lot of the time. So I'm really curious how Denver plans on dealing with that if they play zone. I guess I like if I had to rank them, I would say Derek White, then Porzingis, but certainly not going to argue with anybody playing Tatum, Brown, or Holiday. All right, White or Porzingis, they go up there as potential priorities later on. All right, Phoenix and New Orleans. Or is that what you have? Yeah, that is what you have.
Hold on 1 second. Oh,
all right.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah, Phoenix, New Orleans, another one, which it just looks like everybody's healthy with the exception of Bol, I guess. And that's not enough really to move the needle for me. I'm not really getting too much of anything in this game.
Yep, so sort of similar. I would have no issue with Beal, Durant, or Booker, but I'm not going to go out of my way to play them. On the New Orleans side, I'm wondering what they're going to do to match up with Zion, as I often do. New Orleans, if games stay close, like it's weird because we haven't gotten. They just keep getting in these blowouts, and it's hard to know what their ceilings are if these guys stay. If a game.
Wait, hold on. We went past Atlanta, Miami, by the way.
That's the same time, so we can just do that next.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going through the other thing, but yeah, Zion would be my favorite. Nobody who's a priority for me in this game at all. Really tried to find something, but I just don't think there's anything that stands out enough. I guess a really fringy one would be Larry Nance, but I don't think so on this slate. All right, we'll go to Atlanta, Miami. Probably just still waiting for the projections to update a little bit. Let's see. I think they did a pretty good job now. Well, that's pretty good. Okay, we'll call it pretty good. I don't think there's anything close with the ownership part of the projections. I think it's just way off. These guys are going to be much more owned than they're being projected. All right, Cheats. What shows up for you as being the best in this one?
Well, I mean, nothing yet. I mean, I didn't update anything yet, but I imagine that DeJounte Murray is going to be an amazing play at 7,500. Imagine that. Oof. I had a different guy that I was going to be all over at 55, 5,600, but now I think Bogdan probably slides in there as well. And Jalen Johnson, I mean, he's awesome. So all three of those guys, I guess, just get big bumps with Trey out. So those three guys, and then if you wanted to try to stack somehow, Jaquez is doubtful. He remains doubtful. I guess he hasn't played in a while.
Yeah.
Bam, I guess. But I don't really get too much of Miami. So am I missing somebody at Atlanta, or is it the three guys I mentioned?
No, I think a Kongwu at 4,300.
Okay.
That's really easy. Yeah, I think he's actually. I mean, like currently, he's projected to be the highest owned, which is no way that's going to happen. But yeah, he's one that's at 4,300 is getting a little bit ridiculous. And Sadiq Bey, I don't think I would go there though. I think I'd probably rather play Jalen Johnson. It's a tough matchup, so it's hard to know. But I would just go like Murray, Bogdanovich as the clear ones. Maybe throw in a third with a Kongwu if you wanted to get a little stack. But mostly it's Murray and Bogdanovich as clearly like two of the top plays on the slate. And I do think a Kongwu at 4,300 is getting to be very reasonable for his minutes. On the Miami side, you couldn't get to anything?
I thought Bam was just okay.
Oh, Bam was okay. I'm going to go on a limb and say that one of Tyler Hero, Bam, or Butler have a monster game tonight. The smart money's on Bam, but Butler and Hero are getting to that those cheap price points where I'm like, maybe this is the time where we should come up with a run back and play a 3-1 or something like that. So the matchup style would make me think Tyler Hero. If it's a close game, which it very well could be, like maybe it's Jimmy Butler. So I'm going to say Hero, Butler, or Bam as like its own category. But I think Hero and Butler are a little bit more interesting just because the pricing and lack of ownership. So I'm interested in those guys. Remember, Atlanta's like the nut matchup, but now maybe not so much the nuts without Trey, but still, it's one of the best matchups in basketball. So I do want to give them a little boost for that. And speaking of the best matchup in basketball, we have another one of them that both teams get again.
Yeah, this is really tricky though because we really don't know who's playing.
Right.
Especially for Indiana, Siakam is like traveling with the team.
I'm sure Siakam will play. He almost played last night.
Okay, yeah, possible, right? And you have Halliburton remaining questionable. I thought he had a chance to play, but he didn't. You have Nembhard. He didn't play yesterday. He might play today, right? You have Nesmith, who did not play Thursday. He might play today. If all those guys are out, for example, then TJ McConnell gets jammed again, right? If they're all in, then I don't know. We just have to kind of gauge that. And is it good enough of a spot where we should actually wait? The problem is like all sorts of great plays before. So I don't know what we're supposed to do about that. One thing is an amazing play. I mean, I think now again, it's not whatever former team, who gives a crap. I mean, you get Malcolm Brogdon at freaking 5,400. That 30 minutes, if that's real or whatever it is, I'm down with that against the Pacers. So that's what I was saying when I was talking about Bogdanovich. This was going to be probably my favorite play on the slate, really, at 5,400. We've been playing all these ridiculous, horrible $5,400 plays over the last 3 months, it seems. And now I'm actually getting one that I know can get 40 or 50. Gets in a good mood in this matchup. So I really do like Brogdon here. I think he's going to be owned. But maybe with Bogdanovich opening up and all this other stuff, maybe he won't be as owned. So I happen to really like that play a lot. So I like Brogdon from the Portland side. Now Ayton is back, so all that Portland center roulette stuff, thankfully, is finally out of play. But Indiana, we're just going to have to wait. So here's my question again. How important is this Indiana spot? Like, if you get the right news, is it important enough to forego something from, say, Atlanta or, the first game to wait for it?
It's an impossible question because it depends on Halliburton, really. Like, if the news is just Neesmith or Nembhard, it's really not really relevant.
Right.
If the news is Halliburton, then it's very relevant. So
well, that's the point, since we don't know.
There's no real way to measure, but even that, you're playing McConnell, but even still, they added a body with Siakam, so guys like Hield and Mathurin, maybe not as much of a boost as they got last night if Halliburton is in fact out. Something tells me throughout the day we'll have this information. Indiana, I mean, knock on whatever wood, Indiana has been pretty good about letting us know. We knew Halliburton was out well before lock, yesterday. It wasn't like a late thing. So I'm hoping that we get that. I guess that's my best way to put it, is that I'm just going to hope. I agree with you about Brogdon. I think it's much more of a tournament play than you think it is. I don't think that there is any guarantee that he plays even 20 minutes. So I would treat it with extreme caution. This guy they've been giving him almost no minutes for the most part. If this game was back in Indy and he was, starting, but we have no idea that he's even going to start. It's just a total speculation on a 1-game sample size, and we have a 30-game sample size of him not. And when that happens, he might play 15 minutes. That's a real possibility. So I would not be so gung-ho on the Brogdon thing, assuming that everything's going to be okay. Now, as a tournament play, if you're telling me that he's going to be 10% or so, I'm good. I'll take all the risk there is. If you tell me he's 25%, I think we're getting a little bit, okay, maybe we should be thinking about fading this rather than playing it. But personally, I'm on your side. My natural instincts tell me to play him, so I'm going to play him and use him as a priority as of right now. Yeah, that's the only play I have in this game that makes any sense of me, except for maybe Siakam. It's kind of weird, but it's a really good matchup. First game with the team. I don't usually love to do that, but look, they got him for a reason. They're still trying. They're obviously trying to win games, and if Halliburton is even out, Siakam, I don't know. It feels fringy, but I'm kind of tempted. And then I look and I see he's going to get some ownership. So I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I do think Brogdon is a solid play. With regard to what I'm going to do, I'll post my early builds, but I'm really hoping we get that Indiana information earlier. Otherwise, I'll revisit this stuff at 6. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the answer to your question is. It's a very good question, and it's a very tough one. What do we do with this Indiana stuff? Because if they all sit again, which at Portland you think they might, it's just going to be TJ McConnell. Actually, then Siakam would definitely look like something, and Benedict Mathurin I think would be an awesome play as well. So, but I like the Atlanta stuff, and I like the first game enough to where I'm not willing to just put everything in the back, And I was trying to measure, when we talked about Brogdon, I was trying to measure him versus Sohan. And I think Sohan's a significantly better play, for safety and upside. But I think Brogdon is, well, if things break the right way, you get there with Brogdon. And by the way, Sohan, I think he put up 45 the other night. So I was just sort of weighing those guys. I'll probably end up playing both of them together where I played them. All right. Brooklyn at my Lakers.
I don't have anything.
Nothing,
Do
right?
you have anything here?
No, just there's a lot of rumors about Nick Claxton being traded, so I'm just going to keep an eye on him every day. See if I see anything coming up that day. If you see him, if you see one of these tradable guys, marked to questionable, I would just be ready to jump. And on the Lakers side, I actually do think that. So one thing I want to ask you is like, why the hell does LeBron always project as well as he does? Like, it's bizarre. Like he's like the Lakers against the spread last year. The Lakers were like 30% against the spread. LeBron like never hits his median value. In like his ceiling games, he just barely clears it a lot of the time. I don't really understand why he's projected as close to AD as he is. Why is he projected to outscore AD tonight? It's beyond me. I think Anthony Davis, look, is a great play. Always gets forgotten about by the last game of the day. He's 1,300 cheaper than Embiid, so you do have some savings. He's also got forward eligibility. Taurean Prince, if you're starved for value. And why isn't D'Angelo Russell a great play? Because he is the one I was going to say is probably like my favorite. Like, this is the same exact price. It's a similar matchup to the other night against his former team. I mean, all the things are just going, okay, we got to play D'Angelo Russell tonight for me. So I'm playing D'Angelo Russell. I have him as a priority play. And I think Jared Vanderbilt has, like, we'll see the fluctuations with his minutes, but I don't think you want to use him tonight. You tend to want to use him against really, really good guards where they have trouble stopping, like Luka the other night, where they needed to keep Vanderbilt out there just to cover him. But I think D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Davis are both very strong plays in this late game. So for me to sum up, look, I'm probably going to have at least 3 guys from that early game. At least 2 Spurs, Sohan and Vassell probably being my favorites as of right now. Oh, sorry, Sohan, Vassell, and the center, Zach Collins. But I also like Keldon Johnson, Jones, and Champagnie enough. I like LaMelo on the other side as my favorite, but I'm happy with one of Bridges or Rozier. I think this could be a high-scoring night. Then we get to the Embiid, fine, secondary play for me. Richards and Washington secondary plays, depending on who's out. White and Porzingis secondary plays currently. Murray and Bogdanovich priorities. Brogdon's going to be a priority. Russell's going to be a priority. And those are my main plays from what I've got so far.
Speaking of D'Angelo Russell, I did run a Saber sim build before we even got on here, and I was actually getting. Again, this is before my Atlanta, but just to let you know that I was getting a full 35% of D'Angelo Russell.
Nice.
And then the other guy who I was getting that we didn't mention, actually you mentioned him, but I didn't stress him, was getting a bunch of Okiki from Orlando.
I have a feeling with the other stuff that might slide a little bit lower.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then other guys that I'd be getting were just the guys that we had mentioned. So we'll see what happens with the Atlanta projections. I'll update that pretty quickly. And I'm down for 6 o'clock tonight.
Sounds good, man. Look forward to seeing you there.
Okay, later.